because that 10-minute job had become a 20-minute job, became a 30-minute job, and it just became so big that I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello. My name is Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Joe's interviewing Rachel Allen. Rachel was introduced to us by Heather Waring from shows numbered 56 and 172. Rachel is a business coach, qualified accountant and business owner herself, and she's on a mission to help female entrepreneurs to understand and speak the language of money fluently. Her unique combination of coaching, teaching and mentoring will help you to get on top of your accounts, to address those mind monkeys that can really hold you back and prepare you to grow your business up to and away beyond the VAT threshold. Rachel lives in sunny Norfolk with her husband and two wonderful daughters. She's run a manufacturing business for the last 16 plus years and been qualified as a chartered accountant for over 20 years. She's a self-confessed numbers and spreadsheet geek, but she also loves running, singing and drinking gin, not necessarily in that order. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Rachel Allen. Welcome, Rachel. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, nice to meet you.
It's great to have you with me. So start by telling us a bit about who you are, what you do, and crucially, where you do it.
I'm Rachel Allen. I'm a business coach. I specialise in helping business owners get on top of their finances, their accounts and their money mindset, things like that. Mm-hmm. And where do I do it? I do it in sunny Norfolk.
Aha, and you have a rather nifty, lovely little office, don't you?
Oh, I have a lovely garden room. We had an old shed that was falling down. So when we rebuilt it as a garden office, and it's great fun, especially in the summer, looking out at the trees and the birds and what have you.
So you don't just have a fake commute, you have a real commute.
I have a full 20 seconds. I did time it once.
Is it a bit muddy occasionally, though?
It doesn't tend to be too muddy. It can get slippy, especially when the leaves are falling.
So you talk about being a coach and particularly around finances within business. Mm-hmm. Where did that all come from? Why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? I am an accountant. I qualified 20-something years ago, straight out of uni. And about 16 years ago, I started a manufacturing business. So I actually still run that. We manufacture electrical wiring harnesses, highly exciting stuff. And a few years ago, I was getting a bit bored, really, of doing the same thing year in, year out. And I was looking for something different to do. And I came across coaching, which I thought would be a great fit for my personality and what I enjoy doing. And once I was qualified, I then needed to niche because, you need to sell yourself, and niching is the best way to do that. Yeah. And I realized that I was kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, trying to be this life coach, when in fact I've got an awful lot of skill and experience around running a business and doing the finances. So I thought I'd put the two together. That would be a good fit.
Yes. And I guess the electrical wire harnesses or whatever you said it was would have been too much of a niche, too narrow.
Well, it's a manufacturing side of things, so I don't know how many people would actually want coaching on in that particular area.
Yes.
So I thought the finance side of things, and it's an area I love. I love numbers. I'm very sad. I love accounts. I love reconciling banks and stuff like that. So I like to share that love with others.
Yes. And do you think it's something that you would have ended up doing even without the manufacturing business in the middle? So you were an accountant, would you have sort of developed that business into what you do now, because that's naturally how you want to be sort of manifesting that skill that you have?
I'd like to think so. It's hard to imagine where I would be if I carried on down the corporate road of being employed by other people.
Yes.
I took the leap to effectively employ myself just because the opportunity was put in front of me. My now business partner was basically trying to buy part of the company that we worked for, and one of his team pulled out, and so I offered to join in, and they were very grateful to have me. I was very excited to be there.
Yes.
And it was in a time of my life pre-children and what have you, so it felt that we would regret it if we didn't try it. And so having got the taste for working for myself, I'm not sure now that I would want to work for somebody.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that need to work for myself would have come up anyway, and maybe I'd have gone down this road. But who knows?
So talk a bit about how important it is to sort of get your head round money and finance in business, because it's interesting. I think when you're thinking about starting a business, you know, you sort of probably, some people traditionally start thinking about writing a business plan and going to the bank and all that sort of stuff. But in reality, a lot of people start a business because they just decide to start it, and they sort of finance it through, you know, savings or just cash flow or other business, you know, other employment first or whatever. And often I think that the financial side of it doesn't really become a focus until either there's a problem or until they're sort of bigger and feel more sort of official. But I do feel sure that if more people thought about this before they started and actually had it in mind as they went through, they'd sort of be successful quicker and perhaps with less stress. What are your thoughts on that?
I'd like to think that's the case, yeah, because I think a lot of people, they start it because they want to help people.
Yeah.
They want to do what it is that they do. So quite often it's a side hustle, or they run it alongside their normal work, and that's sort of how they fund the initial sort of startup, if you like.
Yeah.
And people often don't think about the accounts. It's the last thing on their mind. And they will either struggle because they've not got, you know, they're not making the money that they need to, and they don't want to look at their finances, or they actually do very well, and they don't really need to think about it, but then something will happen. So, you know, a tax bill will come up and they've suddenly gone, oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about tax. Or they just get this sense of, I'm doing all right, but am I really? Is something lurking, waiting for me? And that's when they tend to start looking at their accounts to try and understand things. If you can get a grip of it straight away, it can give you such a sense of confidence in what you're doing, because you understand where you are and what's going on. But also as you grow, you can sort of start to set some decent goals and set your budgets, and really start working towards a concrete goal rather than just, well, I'm doing okay. And I think doing okay is probably the death note of many, many dreams, because you're in business and you're doing okay. And so you just tick along doing okay for quite some time. Whereas if you can really get to grips with what's going on financially, and that you have to do that both physically and emotionally. It's not just doing the books and getting on top of those. That is really, really important. It's also the emotional side of it. So giving yourself permission to earn a decent amount of money, giving yourself permission to pay a large tax bill. A lot of people are terrified of a decent tax bill.
Yes.
Personally, I look at a big tax bill and go, you've just earned a load of money, well done. You see what I mean? And a lot of people, though, they think of it almost as a fine for doing well. So they don't want to do well, so they don't get fined. And so, you know, if you can really get to grips with it being safe to make a decent amount of money and wanting to do it, then, you know, it becomes so much easier.
And how do you work with your clients? Because I sort of imagine that people are at all sorts of different places, you know, from having, I don't know, a carrier bag of receipts and they haven't even thought about their accounts, never mind what that tells them or any of that sort of stuff, right the way through to, you know, being much more sophisticated because they come from a corporate background where they were used to accounts and all that sort of stuff. What's your process?
To be honest, what I do is
I have what I call a confession session. And so basically I go through with people what it is that's holding them back or that they are having trouble with at that moment.
Yeah.
And quite often the thing that they have a problem with isn't necessarily the problem that they're presenting to me. So they might be saying, I just can't do my books, can't get on my accounts, but actually they've got a slight issue around allowing themselves to be successful. They're beginning to feel that they shouldn't be allowed to. Do you see what I mean? It becomes a bit of a mindset thing.
Yeah.
What I'm pleased to say is that I don't actually do people's books. I've done that, I've been there, got the t-shirt, and I don't do that side of things. So if they come to me with a bag of receipts, we work through what they can do about that bag of receipts. Thankfully, I don't have to sit and go through that bag of receipts anymore.
Relief.
But trying to understand why they've let it build up into a bag of receipts, what it is that's holding them back from doing it. I had one client who, she said she knew exactly what she should do, and she hated inputting things onto the computer.
Yeah.
So we talked it through and worked out that the type of business she had, there was nothing stopping her doing the whole thing on paper. And that was much more her style. So she started recording things onto paper in a little book and gave that to the accountant with the receipts.
Yeah.
And so she was able to keep on top of her accounts and know where she was. It was just a slightly more manual process than somebody else who's a whiz at Xero or QuickBooks or something.
Yes. Yeah.
But we were able to identify what it was that was holding her back from doing what she needed to do.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I used to have sort of, years where I would sort of get stuck on something like PayPal was always the thing I could never reconcile. And so I'd put it off and put it off and put it off. Of course, it would then be like such a ridiculous job. I still wouldn't do it, sort of thing. And then I've finally got my head around just doing stuff regularly, you know, like every day, every other day, just doing a couple of things and using technology and, you know, taking away all those barriers that get in the way. And it cracked me up this year that I actually, instead of sending my accounts to my accountant at the beginning of January to be sorted out by the end of January, I sent them to him in July. And of course, it took him about 3 months to get back to me because he was so shocked. He probably didn't have a slot for me because he's got me carved out for January. So, but interesting that like you've just said, exactly the example with that client, that you just have something that's a friction point, a barrier, and as soon as you take that away, you know, things
just generally flow. I mean, I definitely agree with you on the little and often. I have a thing that I try to do each week. It's called Finance Friday. And so I just do a little video on LinkedIn and Facebook trying to encourage people to do a bit of their accounts every week. Because that's exactly true. What is a little job today or a mediumly small job once a week? If you leave it 3 months, absolute nightmare. Because I had the exact example. I have a job that I do in my manufacturing company. I do my dividend vouchers, and it literally takes 10 minutes. But I did 18 months worth in one go. Because that 10-minute job had become a 20-minute job, became a 30-minute job, and it just became so big that I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But the problem with having a to-do on your to-do list for that long, it's really draining. It never goes away, and it sits in the back of your head constantly. And I think if you've got a to-do that stays on your to-do list for a really long time, you have to face it. You have to eat that frog. However you do it, whether you give it to someone else to do or whether you do it yourself, you'll feel such a relief having done it.
Yes, exactly. Well, I can say NatWest helped me actually, because I have a charge card with them where I'd log in, but eventually like at 7 o'clock at night because I'd ignored it all day, sort of thing. And then it would say that it wasn't available because obviously they must process from early evening, sort of thing. And so I'd regularly not end up dealing with it and reconciling the account and everything else because I couldn't get into the blinking website. And now they've created an app and done away with the website, and I can look at it at 3 o'clock in the morning if I like, and it's there. So thank you, NatWest. Even when I'm procrastinating, you haven't caused me an issue.
I've been converted to Xero, because it connects through to your bank account. So I no longer have to connect to HSBC or PayPal. I can just open Xero and it tells me everything that's happened. And as long as I reconcile the bank every couple of days, everything's processed and everything's done.
Yes, yeah,
So
it's great, isn't it?
find that
Technology.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My sort of again, removing that friction point, was discovering Receipt Bank. I used to forever have bits of paper. Not that I have many receipts anymore, because of course I'm not traveling anywhere as we're currently in lockdown. But I used to, have piles and piles of receipts that I had to enter, and it used to drive me loopy. But as soon as I discovered that, and I could take a photo of the receipt when I was, at the coffee shop, or forward emails to it or whatever, it just
Fabulous,
took away
isn't it?
so much hassle. Yeah. So I'm the technology fan, not the pen and paper fan.
Well, no, and once you get into that, literally just taking photographs or emailing it to it's ridiculously easy, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So how much of the time do the things that you coach your clients on end up not being about the money at all?
To be honest with you, it's almost all the time.
Yes, you say that.
Because people are really people get very scared of numbers.
Yes.
Oh, I don't do finances, I don't understand my accounts, God, I can't do tax, can't do VAT. And in fact, most of the time they just don't want to look at it for one reason or another. And sometimes they've been told over the years, they've flunked their GCSE maths, or they've been told constantly, or they have a story they tell themselves that they're no good with money.
Yeah.
And so they believe that they are.
Yeah.
Whereas in actual fact, as long as you can use a calculator, you can do your accounts. It's not complicated. It is literally adding up and taking away.
Uh-huh.
Most of the time, it is getting a system in place that will run it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding the tech can be an issue for quite a lot of people, but there are people out there who can set that tech up for you and help you run with it.
Yeah.
And so most of it is around the mindset that you have around your finances, and believing in yourself and in them, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. So you've talked a bit about how you work with your clients in terms of your, what did you call it again? Your confession.
Oh, my confession sessions. Yeah.
What does it look like from there, in terms of, what your days look like? How much time do you spend doing different parts of things in your business?
Well, my days look a bit strange because I still have the manufacturing business running alongside. So I'm doing two things at the same time. The intention had been to step back a bit more from the manufacturing and do more of the coaching, but COVID decided it had different plans for me. Because at one point I was working completely full time in the manufacturing.
Right. Yeah.
Going on. But these days I'm spending 2 days a week actually in the office running the manufacturing, and then the other 3 days I have spaces for a few confession sessions each day, and the rest of the time I'm either doing the marketing for it, doing my own accounts, or catching up with some of the manufacturing stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so you're managing sort of two business perspectives, if you like. How do you then integrate that with your home life as well, bearing in mind that you work from home or work from the shed? I know you don't call it that, garden office as well.
Probably really badly is the answer to that. It became quite clear during the lockdown, because obviously we spent far more time. I used to spend 3 or 4 days a week in the office, and with COVID we changed that so that I only go in 2 days now. And so it did become quite obvious when the kids were at home from school quite how much time I liked spending in my office working. And it's my little hiding hole, and it's where I will disappear to when I'm trying to hide from them all. So what I'm trying to do now is to be much stricter with myself. So if I'm in the office, it's all about the manufacturing. It's, I'm trying not to look at Facebook or doing any marketing for the coaching. This is just then. And when I'm here, I try to have set times. So if I come into the garden room, that's when I'm working.
Yeah.
So if I go back into the house, then I am mummy or wife, and I'm doing home things rather than work.
Mm-hmm. See, so that commute is important, all 20 seconds of it.
It is vital, actually, yeah. I actually miss the half an hour commute that I have to the office.
Yes.
Because I would listen to books. I'm a mad audio fan, love listening to books. And I could get through quite a few with the amount of driving that I was doing. And now that I have a 20-second commute, you don't listen to very much in that.
I know, it's hard, isn't it? It's my husband firstly is having what people call a fake commute. He's doing the school run, which our daughter used to go to school on the bus, but obviously with COVID we didn't want her going on the bus. And we have friends opposite whose sister is also at the school, so between the three families we take them to school, masks on and all that sort of thing. But so we committed to doing school runs, and I convinced him that it was a good idea for him to do it in the mornings, firstly because I don't get up. I stay up late and I don't get up early, but secondly because he was used to going to work and now he works from home. He doesn't drive to work. He did complain that he wanted the school moved so he could drive along the seafront as he used to do. But he's actually got into the groove of it and actually enjoys that time in the morning. And so whenever I see people talking about fake commutes, I say, oh, my husband has one of those. So that's worked quite well for him.
Very underrated, actually, the commute.
Yes.
I mean, a long commute obviously is hard work and very tiring. But I think there is an optimal amount of time, sort of 15 to 20 minutes, that is actually, you wind down from work on the way back and you prepare for work on the way there.
Yes. I read about someone today saying that they go for a cycle ride with their neighbour every morning to the end of the lane and back. It's about 30 minutes, and they do it every evening as well. And that's again their sort of fake commute and their opportunity to sort of wind up and gear down sort of thing. But it's interesting what you're saying about the not listening to the books, because I am an avid podcast listener, or at least I was until lockdown, because I used to listen when I walked, which I didn't do for a long time because we were really properly shielding because of my mother-in-law who lives next door. And I listen when I'm driving, and I've got no reason to drive anywhere pretty much at the moment. And so I've ended up trying to listen to things when I'm cooking because I can't really listen when I'm working half the time because I need to concentrate, and I can't concentrate if someone's talking to me. But I'm now missing my music because I listen to classical music when I'm working, but normally when I'm cooking, I listen to, singing music and pop music and things like that. But of course, now I've got to fit in those podcasts. So it's actually quite hard.
It is, isn't it? There's so many things we want to listen to that we want to do. There's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's also ridiculous because I could just say, well, I used to listen to, X number of hours a week of podcasts because I was walking or driving. I'm just going to listen to them anyway and just sit there. or walk up and down the stairs or something, but you don't, do you? Because I guess you stack habits, don't you? So you've got, like you said, we both drove and listened, and now we're not driving, we can't possibly listen because those two things go together.
Absolutely.
It's really, really odd, but there we go. So how do you make sure you stay organized? What sort of technology or not are you using? You might be one of our paper and pen people.
I am slightly more the paper and pen. I use a bullet journal. I love my bullet journal. I just need to actually use it more.
Yes.
I am one of these people that complains a lot about having a lot to do, and I'm waiting for someone to create the system that works for me. I've tried using Nozbe, I've tried using Outlook and all the tasks and everything. But at the end of the day, I need a piece of paper where I've written down my to-do list and I can tick it off. Yes. And I am one of those sad people that will do a to-do list as one of my to-dos so that it's the first thing that gets ticked off. And I have been known to write down something that I've already done.
You've already done. I was going to say, it could be worse. You could do that, but clearly you do. Yes, I do that too.
There is something about ticking off a list.
Yes.
And I realised that about myself recently because I struggle when it's a really big task. And a task that's going to take me weeks to do. Yeah. But it's one line. Yeah. Classic with my manufacturing, I have to reprice one of my customers every year. And there's about 600 items that I have to work my way through, and it takes weeks. But it's just written down as pricing, as a one-liner. And so I have learned recently that I need to break it down much more so that I can tick them off and get that satisfaction of ticking things off.
Yes, yeah. That sometimes I do that on my to-do list where I make it a daily task for a week, and then I can tick it off every day, but it reappears the next day rather than it being the same task. So
Yeah.
that gives me that it's probably a dopamine hit, isn't it, of ticking the box.
That's the joy of the bullet journal, is that you're meant to rewrite your list each day.
Yes.
So that when you start seeing a recurring item, it reminds you to either get off your backside and do it, or delegate it, or ditch it.
Yes. Yeah. I talk quite often about a sort of to-do list process that I used a little bit a good few years ago now, and I keep saying I'm going to go and find it, and I haven't. But it probably was a precursor to the bullet journal, in that you did a list and then you scanned it and picked out things you were going to do, and as new things came in, you added them to the bottom, and then I think after you'd gone around 3 times, you then had to start copying the things you hadn't done that you still wanted to do to the bottom of the list, but cross all the rest out and just drop them, as you've just said. So yeah, maybe that's sort of where the bullet journal concept came from, because it does sound quite similar.
So I find it really useful, and I do like having a nice notebook that I can write in. I'm definitely a writer from that point of view.
You do all the cartoon and colouring and everything else in to really, really tart it up.
You know what? Bullet journals didn't work for me until I realised that I didn't have to do all that.
Well, you might say that.
I'm not artistic at all, and I used to look up bullet journal spreads for ideas and things, and they were all so pretty, and they had so many different colours. And when I discovered that I didn't even need to draw a box, I could just write a list. It made life so much easier.
Yes, yeah, I think that's probably what put me off for ages, but for the fact that it's not technology either. I like being able to reorganize my list without being able to tell that I reorganized it. So what about keeping yourself healthy and energized for your work, especially given you have two areas of work? How do you do that?
Again, this is a work in progress. I try to plan what I'm eating. If I'm doing it well, if I'm being healthy, if it's all going to plan, I have a plan for my food. If I don't, then I will buy something from a van, or I will eat some chocolate at lunchtime. I know that this is probably the one area of my self-care that I really need to make a difference in. And I've decided I'm taking 2 weeks off over Christmas. I finish on the 18th, and I'm not restarting until January. And it's scaring me because it's like I've never done it completely like that before. But this year I'm going to do it, and in that time, the plan is to have some family time together, but also to start planning for January, so I can actually start getting properly healthy.
Yes, yeah.
As you say, I've got 2 young girls, and I can see them picking up all of my bad habits.
Yes.
I hear if I just have this now, Mummy, I won't have any tomorrow. Oh.
Yes, yeah. One of the my top tips for such things is an app called Paprika. If you do cooking, Paprika is just I love it to the point where I want to tell everyone about it. It allows you to put all your recipes in, and you can save them from the internet and so on, and then you can set up your menu for the week in it, and then you can also create your shopping list from it. And you can set up pre-saved menus as well. So if I haven't done this yet, but I keep thinking I must sort of choose 4 weeks of dinners and save them as 4 separate menus, and then you can just whack a week's menu in and it populates it, and then you can create your shopping list from it, and your job done, sort of thing, without having to be too creative. Because I think that's the bit that puts me off, is trying to be creative and come up with something different to yesterday and last week and things like that. And I don't think you have to be that creative, you just think you do.
Absolutely. My husband does most of that, but I will suggest it to him, because he gets very wound up having to think about what to feed us all.
Yes, yeah. It's such a
home, he had to do lunch as well.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Of course. Yeah, so it's such a relief just to sort of go, I know what I'm having. Like, quite often in the evening I'll suddenly go, what are we having tomorrow? I might have to get something out the freezer. rather than thinking, oh, what shall I get out of the freezer? I actually know what we're having tomorrow. I just need to go and find it. So I thoroughly recommend it. So what about learning and improving yourself? Your sort of business life has changed quite a lot over the years with the different businesses that you run. You talked about audiobooks. How else do you keep yourself abreast of what's happening and what you need to know?
Well, from an accounting point of view, I tend to follow up with with my institute, the Institute of Chartered Accountants, England and Wales. They do a very good CPD program, which I must confess I haven't done as much of this year because of COVID and everything being crazy. But I try to keep on top of all the tax stuff and the accounting stuff through them. And up until sort of the end of 2019, I was still training as a coach, and so I was doing a lot of training with them. But I have actually bought 2 diplomas from them. I've done the first diploma, and once COVID has relaxed its grip on the world, I'm planning to do another one. So I sort of will continue sort of training with them, because I do like in-person training, going away from the day-to-day stuff and focusing on what it is you want to learn. Because I find if I'm just trying to watch a webinar or just reading something myself, it doesn't go in quite the same way.
Yes, yeah.
So I have missed the in-person stuff a lot this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I liked the excuse to not have to go and do the in-person stuff.
They did it rarely enough that it was still a treat.
Yes, although to be fair, I haven't done the online stuff either. I've avoided that too. So maybe I just need to focus back on my podcast. That's where I do my learning. So last couple of questions then. What about those days where it all goes horribly wrong? How do you deal with those days? How do you get through them?
The honest answer is probably gin.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
To be honest with you, if things are going so completely pear-shaped, I will just down tools, walk away from it, probably quite literally go for a walk around the block, get some headspace, have a bath, and then just settle down with the family in front of something naff on the telly, and just go away from it for a few hours, get back to it in the morning. And nearly always when you're back to it the next day, you can see a different way of going about it. When you're stuck on it and in it, it can get too much.
I always think reconciling accounts is a great example of that. The amount of times I've not been able to get something to add up, and then I leave it, and the next day it works straight away.
Yeah, it's a classic.
There must be a law. Is there a law of that?
I think there is. And the worst one is when you're learning to do it and then you ask your boss for help. You've got to the point where you just cannot do it anymore. And they walk in, and because they're fresh eyes, they just go, "Is that backwards?" They go, "Oh, damn it. What?" And I had that with an employee of mine. And he was, every time he got stuck and got to the point where he had to ask for help, I would walk in and just go, "It's that." And he used to hate me. He'd curse me for it, because it was so obvious. Why didn't he see it? And it's just because if you've got the blinkers around something, you've looked at something for so long, just a fresh pair of eyes on something. So sometimes, just asking someone just to have a look at it can be the answer.
Yeah, definitely. Did you end up starting to come in and pretend you'd got the answer wrong until,
period of time?
And the last question then, what about those days where you get to live more? And that's why I talk about getting to do more of the things that you want to do and less of the stuff that you don't want to do. What do they look like for you?
Oh, if I was living the full life, I would be currently in New Zealand doing my coaching and my work from a beach house, enjoying their summer. So I've got family down there who we're meant to be with now. And so we're missing them terribly.
Yes.
And my one day goal is to spend my currently winters down in the summer and have 2 summers a year.
Oh,
So enjoying the best of everything. But I love what I do. The coaching sessions that I do with people, helping them to get on top of their finances, to see the difference in mindset that they come away with, really makes me feel great. it surprises me, because to me, the stuff is so easy and so obvious, and I'm having to allow myself to make money doing something that is quite easy to me, because it's not easy to everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's learning that you have value even in something that you don't realize to yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I love doing that. I love talking with my clients. I love helping them to understand what their accounts are telling them. They can go and make a huge difference in their business.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I've mentioned my friend Lucy Whittington a number of times on this podcast, who has the book, which I think is called Finding Your Thing. And she talks about the fact that, what you're best at, we can all see at the end of your nose, but you can't see it because it's on, the end of your nose. So it's too close to you. And how often we just dismiss things and think that we can't make money doing that, or we can't deliver that as a service because everyone can do it. It's, it's not difficult, is it? And actually, for most people, it is, because it's your gift.
That art's only genius. It's only easy to us because it's our genius.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
If you ask me to create something or design something, I'm nowhere. Give me numbers and I'm yours.
Yes, yeah. So it's been brilliant talking to you today, Rachel. Tell people how they can find out more about you and get in touch.
Probably the easiest way, I'm on Facebook. Just look at Rachel Allen Coaching. That's my page. And my website is rachelallencoaching.co.uk. So if you jump on either of those, you can get in touch with me.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for your time.
No, thank you.
All this information is available in the show notes. If you go to powertolivemore.com / in this case 199, then you'll find them there. And this week I just want to say that next week we have a really special show for you. You will have just heard that this is show number 199. Next week's show is 200. I can't believe that we've been going that long. And you may remember, if you're a long time listener of the show, that for show 100 I interviewed Ellie, Little Dodsey, my co-host, and it turned into a bit of a stroppy teenager interview. I can't remember how long ago it was, but she must have been 11 or 12. And at the time she wasn't entirely keen on the idea of being interviewed, as you'll hear if you listen to it. But this time we thought that we would switch the roles round, and Ellie is actually interviewing me, and we completed the interview this evening. She looked at the questions that I usually use and then adapted them to her own wording and so on. And I have to say she did a really good job. We had fun, and it was really interesting to see where she is now. We started the show however many years ago now, obviously 200 shows ago nearly, and she was only something like 8 or 9 when she first started doing the intros, and was very cute. And a few years have gone by since. She's obviously still lovely, but maybe doesn't sound quite so cute. So it was really nice to do, and I'm really looking forward to putting that out next week. So do listen out for that show 200, which will be out on I think it must be the 19th of March. Again, the notes for this week's show are powertolivemore.com / 199, and we definitely look forward to speaking to you next week.
Use your power to live more.